Hello and welcome to Largemouth Bass, a complete guide. I'm Matthew Wright with InReel Fishing, and today I just want to familiarize you with the largemouth bass, their patterns, and how to catch them successfully. For you bass fishermen or even aspiring bass fishermen, largemouth bass are prized catches. They spend most of their time in freshwater lakes and rivers, although they have been seen in brackish water as well, which is a mix of fresh and salt water. Largemouth bass aren't actually bass at all. They belong to the panfish family along with crappie, bluegill, and perch. They tend to congregate in mossy, sheltered areas and other structure to ambush their prey. Although you can catch bass year-round, the best times are early morning or late evening when the sun isn't as intense and the climate is a little bit cooler. Bass are most active in warmer months as they are cold-blooded and the heat stimulates their metabolism and their need to feed. Largemouth bass have been known to reach weights of over 20 pounds, with the current world record being 22 pounds and some change. They spawn as early as March or as late as June, dependent on conditions and water temperature. Their lifespan may be up to 13 years. They are a very popular sports fish, and they've been introduced nationwide and worldwide for sports fishermen to enjoy. There are 3 separate genetic species of largemouth bass, including Florida bass, which are the largest, northern bass, which are more tolerant of cold temperatures, and the tiger bass. Peacock bass are not closely related to these species. Today I will be focusing primarily on largemouth bass. Largemouth bass, also known as black bass, green trout, bigmouth bass, and lineside bass, can be recognized by the lower jaw that extends past the back edge of their eye. They are dark green above the silvery sides and dark stripe across the body. The underside can range from light green to almost white. Their dorsal fin is nearly divided and the posterior portion contains 12 to 13 soft rays. Bass are the top predators or apex predators in the freshwater aquatic ecosystem. They eat anything they can fit in their mouth, including small mammals, reptiles, amphibians, fish, crayfish, insects, worms, and fortunately for us fishermen, artificial lures that mimic these creatures. The fry or hatched bass eat zooplankton and insect larvae. After they reach about 2 inches in length, they then become active predators. As adults, they primarily feed on other fish and large invertebrates. Bass fishing tackle ranges from heavy-duty frogging rods to light finesse setups and everything in between. If you can only choose one setup, it would be a 7-foot or longer, medium-heavy, fast-action bait casting combo. This will allow a large variety of combinations to be fished, and a lot of times this will work really well if you use braided line going to a mono or fluorocarbon leader. There are many videos that cover the specific gear, and I've linked a few in the description below. I personally like Lew's. They are both performant and affordable. Now let's talk seasonal patterns. In the fall, the bass are fattening up. They are chasing bait fish to the mouths of creeks and near the shoreline. You want to focus on lipless crankbaits, which are great for deeper water and vegetation-free water. Buzz baits, you want to buzz them across and close to vegetation and other structure. And Texas rigged minnow baits. This can be weighted or unweighted, but the flukes mimic the bait fish that the bass are chasing. In the winter, you want to focus on using search baits that cover a large area. The flutter spoon, you want to drop the spoon over the target structure and wait for the bite on the way down. Also try jigging off the bottom after the fall. Many times they will catch it on the fall. The drop shot, you want to fish it slowly, rigged wacky style. This slows it down even more, and it's great from the bank as well. And then of course the ever popular Carolina rig. You want to drag it around deeper spots and along ledges. During the spring, there are 3 distinct patterns. The first one we'll talk about is pre-spawn. During pre-spawn, as the bass are getting ready to spawn, you want to use deep diving crankbaits, suspended jerkbaits, and swim jigs. This will help you target various different depths. When you hit the spawn, you want to use soft plastics primarily. Lizards, worms, crawdads. You can do them lightweight Texas rigs or weightless. Make it look like the creature bait is a threat to the bass nest and they will attack out of aggression. So for example, if you put the worm on their nest and just move it around enough to make it look like it's eating their eggs, then they will attack it. Post-spawn, you want to use the same tactics as pre-spawn and spawn, and remember that most likely the strikes will come out of aggression. Some bass will head shallow and others will go deep, so you're going to have to use a variety of plastic lures to find out what they want and where they're at. In summertime, you want to focus primarily on jigs. You want to cast them around structure and cover and any transitional areas. Swim baits, you want to hit offshore structure and targeted points. And this works well for hard and soft swim baits. And then of course the Alabama rig. This simulates a school of fish. You want to use this around humps, points, and ledges. And this is especially good for lethargic bass. Make sure you check your area because in my area, they do not allow the Alabama rig. So for year round, some lures can work very well, especially including spinner baits, crankbaits, swim baits, topwaters including frogs and poppers, jerk baits, crawfish imitations, worms, and jigs. So don't be afraid to experiment. So it's very important to target these bass in a way that allows you to be successful. You don't want to go out there and fish blindly. Bass congregate near structure and cover. Many people use these terms interchangeably, but they are not the same. Structure refers to the natural features of the body of water, like points and islands. Cover is add-on features such as docks, fallen trees, and vegetation. If you want to find bass, there are some key times to know where they are. If it's hot and sunny, they will be wherever shadows are. This can be under trees, floating plants, docks, overhangs, deeper, cooler water, under your boat, and anywhere else that hides them from the direct sun. During the spawn, they will be in shallower waters near rocks and beds. And post-spawn, some will stay shallow for the summer, but others will also go out deep. Certain environmental conditions can make the bass less likely to be active. High UV index, post-storm, after a cold front, a change in barometric pressure, high heat and direct sunlight, cold water temperatures, and any combination of these conditions. Bass are predators and target bait fish. If you can find the bait fish, then you can find the bass. Like many fish, bass thrive and hunt in oxygen-rich waters that have healthy plant life, plentiful food sources, and plenty of structure and cover. And because of this, you will often have to use tactics that aren't as easy to execute, such as flipping and pitching, drop shotting, and Texas rigs that can be used around the cover without getting hung up as often. I'm sure you've heard this many times before, but you want to match the hatch. We hear this a lot, but it's true. If you're on the water and you're throwing a huge jig presentation and you aren't getting bit, but you are seeing schools of smaller bait fish jumping out of the water, then it would be wise to switch things up and use a smaller jig, smaller swim bait, or even a Ned rig. If you see the fish all hitting the surface for bugs, which is oftentimes in early morning or late evening, then switch to a topwater bait like a buzzbait, frog, walking stick bait, or a popper. When fishing is tough, such as during the environmental conditions we just talked about, that is when you will want to switch to finesse tactics, such as drop shots, Ned rigs, Nico rigs, and any of the various worm presentations, the most popular being the wacky rig. These smaller presentations are less intimidating and are oftentimes worked very slowly and methodically so that the bass has to come see and eat the lure. When nothing else seems to be working, give finesse a try. You may be tempted to work the rigs faster and more aggressively, but be patient, work them slowly, and it will pay off. Bass are amazing freshwater predators and a lot of fun for sports fishermen to catch. You can catch bass with finesse tactics or power tactics. Try mixing things up when you go out. Don't be afraid to try out new rigs each time you hit the water. If you are a bank fisherman and don't want to carry a bunch of rods, then use a medium heavy bait caster with 15 to 20 pound braid to a mono or fluorocarbon leader and add a swivel clip tied to the end of the leader. That way you can unclip any rigs quickly and swap them out to the next one without having to constantly retie. catch, photograph, and safely release the bass back into the water so they can grow and spawn and keep the fishing hole going for future generations. So what now? Get out there, get on the water and get some experience and practice. Don't be afraid to try something new. And don't forget to respect the environment and the fish and have lots of fun. I hope you've learned something useful, and I'll have more videos like this coming out on other species.